Hello and welcome to the Field of Streams podcast for Friday, May 20th. I'm your host, Dylan Higgins, joined by my co-host, Brad Johnson. Brad, how you doing this morning?
I'm well. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. We're doing another one of our live broadcasts on Friday morning, so we're here broadcasting, and for our live audience, watchers and listeners, and then we have another Friday guest with us this week. We're joined by Justin Mason of Rotographs. Justin, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastically. It's a little early in California, but it's always good to talk some baseball.
Yeah, you're West Coast like me. We're up a little bit early to do these live chats and the broadcast, but it's good to get this podcast out for people looking at Friday stuff, looking at these Friday games. Justin, you write here at Rotographs. What do you do here at Rotographs, and then what else do you do baseball-wise?
Well, at Rotographs, I cover the AL outfield kind of beat, and I'm also more of the non-analytical type, so I tend to write things that I think are a little bit humorous and give it my information from a less than analytical viewpoint than most people. I also sometimes write social commentary pieces. I just wrote a piece on Matt Bush that went up on Wednesday that is pretty well received so far, surprisingly.
I saw that. I really like that. Definitely a personal element to it that was pretty cool, which I think definitely goes into the whole Matt Bush thing. There's a lot around that, and it's good to get that flavor over at Rotographs. So, yeah, glad you can join us. We're going to be looking at DFS stuff for Friday, and as usual, there's plenty of options. There's no day game, which means there's 15 games in the evening. There's plenty. Brad, what's your immediate takeaway from this slate before we dive right into it? Is there anything that looks weird to you for Friday?
I wouldn't say there's too much looking weird. Keep an eye on the Cincinnati game. I really wanted to use Mariners tonight, but that's looking like a postponement. The weather reports for the other 14 games look nice and clear, so that should be the only one that's really a problem.
Yeah.
If it does clear up, the Mariners look excellent tonight. I'm going to be ignoring them for the purposes of this podcast, but Eddie, Mariners tonight if they're playing.
Yeah, keep an eye on that. That's always a thing, is to look at the weather. But yeah, I agree. If you can pick on Dan Straley's okay, but if you can pick on that Reds bullpen, I feel like we say it every day, but it's worthwhile for sure.
What else could you say? It's terrible.
Yeah, they're not good. And Brad, you'll be doing the Daily Grind Invitational as well today, right?
Yes, it's already half filled, so get your entry in quickly if you're listening. And yeah, it's looking like a good day over on DraftKings. There's even some aces that are kind of affordable. Garrett Cole's 8,700, so you can pair him with Jake Arrieta. Except don't do that because I'm doing that.
Yeah. But yeah, if you want to play along with Brad and other Rotographs listeners, that's the link is up on in the Fangraphs post, and Brad will be tweeting that. You can find it, you can come play along, but those are pretty fun way to get involved. Let's go ahead and get started here for Friday. Brad, I'll let you take it away. We're going to start at catcher. Where do you think, you don't have to show all your cards, but where do you think you might be going at catcher for Friday?
So I was looking at some cheaper catchers today. Just thinking about the aces that are out there, I'm probably going to be using one of them, whether it's Arrieta, Cole, even Aaron Nola. So catcher's usually a good place to go a little cheaper. And two of the main guys I'm looking at, either Evan Gattis, the power threat up against Colby Lewis. He's a reasonable price on FanDuel, at least at 2,700. And he's also, I'll say, a very volatile pick. You're basically going to get either a home run or very little from him. That's kind of how he plays. It's an all-power profile. If you prefer something a little safer, we always talk about Francisco Cervelli, high-floor guy, very reliable day-to-day, and should be reliable again today against Eddie Butler.
Yeah, kind of the opposite of Gattis,
Yeah, very much the opposite. He costs 200 more on FanDuel, but you can expect to get something out of him. Really good for a 50-50 or a cash game.
Yeah, I like that, and he gets, Eddie Butler, so I think that's an okay matchup for him. Justin, where are you thinking of going at catcher? Did you have either of those two guys, and then who else did you have?
I didn't have either of those two guys. I'm looking at Jan Gomes against Clay Buchholz today because anytime you can go up against Clay Buchholz, it's a
Yeah.
really nice day to stack Indians, in my opinion. So I really like Gomes. I know Norris has been really really bad this year in
Hmm.
San Diego, but he traditionally murders left-handed pitching. So
Hmm.
and he's only $3,000 on DraftKings, so he might be a guy I roll out in some kind of GPP plays. And then it seems silly, and it is, and it's probably some homerism, but Buster Posey's like $2,800.
Yeah, that's
And I know
silly.
he's going. I mean, even if you don't get much from him because he's going up against Arrieta at home, it's just so well worth the price that he'll definitely be in a few of my lineups.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to ignore at 2,800. It's Arrieta. I get why it's so cheap, but I would agree that's hard to
Yeah,
ignore.
the only reason to stay away from Buster Posey tonight on DraftKings is because you're using Arrieta. If
Yeah.
you're not using him, he's almost an auto lock. Even against such a good pitcher, against a good bullpen, he's way too talented for that price tag.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's a good call. I had Norris against Casimir because Norris has been bad, but I agree usually hits lefties, and it's not like Casimir's been lighting the world on fire. You know, it's not a scary lefty, so I'm okay with that matchup as well. I had Ed Miguel Montero getting Jake Peavy. Miguel Montero's back, has some pop, and Jake Peavy's okay. It's not a great park for it, I understand, but I think you can pick on Peavy, especially with a lefty. And then the other name I had that we didn't mention, I have Wilson Ramos getting Justin Nicolino. Wilson Ramos has started the year well. He'd actually not big splits there this year, not really hitting lefties, and Justin Nicolino's left-handed. But oh my goodness, is Nicolino not very good? He's a bad lefty. He's bad enough in control numbers. I mean, it's a 3.7 ERA. I don't buy that even a little bit.
No.
Way more walks than strikeouts. If I count right now, it looks like 11 walks to 4 strikeouts. I can't even believe that's real. Those are the numbers. But Nicolino's not very good.
It's real
Yeah,
and it's consistent with the past.
yeah. The control numbers are bad. The 3.7 ERA, 3.75 ERA is a mirage. So part of me, like, I started to look at the left-right splits for Wilson Ramos, but it's like, it doesn't matter. Nicolino's not very good. So if you believe in Ramos so far, and I think a lot of us do, he's been good in the past, and he seems okay so far. I'm okay with that matchup. Brad, did you have any catchers that we did not get to?
My wild card pick for tonight would be Alex Avila up
Mhm.
against Dylan G at U.S. Cellular Field.
Sure.
Avila hasn't really done much this year. You're mostly hoping maybe he finally gets into one against pitchers not so great, and at a
Mhm.
ballpark that's really friendly to home runs. He's very cheap on FanDuel, in particular, $2,000. It's the minimum. Like I mentioned, catcher's usually a good place to go a little cheaper, and Avila might be the guy to do it with.
Sure. Justin, do you have anybody that we didn't mention?
If you're looking kind of off the map, I really like Cameron Root. I don't even know if I'm saying his last name correctly, but at one point this season he had the highest average exit velocity coming off of his bat, and he gets Matt Whistler at home, in the ballpark in Philadelphia. So I don't know if he'll be starting. They may start Ruiz, but if he is, he's kind of a good punt play.
Yeah, Cameron Rupp is interesting for sure. The Phillies lineup's also interesting. I'm interested in Matt Whistler, trying to figure out what to do there exactly, because he's been bad in the past, but he seems to maybe be getting together, but I don't know. So I don't think it's crazy to pick on him at all. And Cameron Rupp's interesting if he gets in. Justin, you want to get us started at first base? Where do you think you're going at first base?
I think in the majority of my leagues, I'm going to either go with one of the Indian first basemen.
Okay.
Napoli and Santana both hit well against right-handed pitching. Again, getting Clay Buchholz. And I really like the price. It allows you to save some money for some either upper-tier pitching or some upper-tier kind of hitting options. Or if you want to go even cheaper than that, I like C.J. Cron. At home. So he's a guy that's going to be extremely cheap in both DraftKings and FanDuel that is good against right-handed pitching.
Right, and he gets Mike Wright, and I assume you're just not worried about Mike Wright and his 5 ERA.
No,
or
I
whatever it is.
mean, Yeah, I mean, anytime you get to go up against a guy with a 5 ERA, it's a pretty nice situation. So,
Yeah.
and you know, if you're looking for a contrarian play, very few people are going to be throwing C.J. Cron into their lineup.
Yeah, I think that's a fine matchup. It's not a very popular lineup right now, and he's not even a popular hitter in the first place, but he can hit. There's some pop there, so I think that's a fine sneaky pick. Brad, what about you? What do you think for first base?
At the top end of the pool, I really like Anthony Rizzo's matchup against Jake Peavy. I think that's going to be, in terms of raw matchup quality, one of the best. Obviously, got AT&T Park in play. Not a good place for left-handed power or any power for that matter. So you're mostly looking at him as a high floor guy, someone who can get multiple hits, walks, even get hit by pitches. He still has enough power to escape that park if he gets a cookie. I also had Carlos Santana and Mike Napoli as two guys I'll be targeting towards the bottom end of the pool. And also like John Jaso up against Eddie Butler.
Yeah. I have Jaso. You've kind of sold me on these high floor Pirates guys. Cervelli and Jaso kind of go together as you know.
They're definitely favorites of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I like that they're cheap every time, and you're getting something out of them. So often when you have to use a cheap player, it's someone like Marcus Semien, who maybe you'll get something out of him, but more often than not, it's going to be a zero.
Yeah.
So I like guys like Jaso and Cervelli who will give you something every time.
Absolutely.
How dare you disparage Semien?
I know, Simeon's a Fangraphs favorite, and he's actually someone we'll talk about in a bit, either you or me, because he's on my list.
Yeah. Sure, I'm going to get the shortstop. I had John Jaso getting Butler. I like Napoli and Santana. I'm fine with those. I have Albert Pujols getting Mike Wright for the same reason you have C.J. Cron. Why not? It's a good matchup, and Pujols still has plenty of pop. He has his flaws. He has his issues. It's a ball player. Not sure about the OBP anymore, but he has like 40 homers last year. Like, there's power there, and that's helpful in DFS. I have Anthony Rizzo getting Jake Peavy. Again, San Francisco is the only reason I would be worried about that at all. I think he's going to be fine. And then my kind of weird pick, I wrote Will Myers getting Scott Kazmir. If I can take Derek Norris, I can also take Will Myers. I'm not pumped about it. It's not a slam dunk, but I think it's viable. He likes to hit lefties, and Scott Kazmir's not been that good. And the Dodgers bullpen isn't that great outside of Kenley Jansen either. So if you believe in Will Myers, and he's had an all right year, I think that's a kind of a fine, not obvious pick at first base that I could see going okay for him. Justin, do you have anybody else at first base that we didn't mention?
Yeah, I mean, E5, I know Tyler Duffy's been really, really good, and they're playing in Minnesota, which is more of a pitcher's park than it is a hitter's park, but I don't believe in Tyler Duffy. So yeah. I think, especially maybe in my cash lineups, I might roll with E5 in one or two of them today.
I don't think it's ever a bad day for Edwin. But Tyler Duffy's kind of an interesting polarizing guy. Brad, do you have strong opinions on Tyler Duffy? I haven't looked into him much.
My opinions couldn't be less strong, to be honest.
So no.
Yeah. He's a guy. I thought he was going to be better when I was looking at him last year. What I'm seeing this year is more back of the rotation, solid starter. He belongs in the majors. He's not a star. He's not someone you're really going to look to in fantasy per se. But he can be like a Kyle Loesch type maybe.
Sounds like you're okay with picking against him, though, if you want to go.
If you want to go against him, there's no problem with that.
Yeah.
Kyle Loesch type is the ace of the Minnesota Twins rotation.
That might be true. Maybe he just looks better because he's pitching for Minnesota, and everyone's like, look at this guy, and it's like he's fine. Yeah. Brad, did you have any other first baseman that we not leaving behind?
There's always guys to pick on at first base. We could talk about all the big names, but I think those are the interesting ones today that are a little different.
Yeah, you could take Justin Bour gets Tanner Roark, Jose Abreu gets Dylan G. You're right. First base is pretty easy. How about second base? A little bit trickier. Brett, where are you starting at second base?
I'm liking Neil Walker a lot today.
Okay.
Against Willie Peralta, who for whatever reason, I've watched a lot of Willie Peralta starts, and
Oh.
he's a guy who, when you just watch him like pitching, throwing warm-ups, he looks like a major league pitcher. He's got 95 mile per hour. He's got good movement on the fastball. The breaking ball doesn't visually look that bad. When he's up against actual hitters, though, the command isn't there. He can't spot the fastball well enough. The breaking ball, for whatever reason, doesn't fool hitters, doesn't fool anybody. So he can't keep hitters honest off his fastball, and he's not spotting it, and he gets teed off as a result. And so Metz in particular tonight and Neil Walker at second base are favorites of mine.
Yeah, I think he's kind of a favorite of ours to pick on, too. Justin, you made a noise. I assume you're not that in on Willie Peralta either.
No, I mean, yeah, he is very falling apart, Jonathan Sanchez-esque. Like he has all those tools that you go, ooh, you look at him pitch, and like Brad said, he looks like a guy who could be a stud, and then you actually watch him pitch in a game, and you're like, oh my God, how's this guy in the major league still?
Yeah.
So yeah, he's not a guy I enjoy watching at all.
Yeah. So Neil Walker against him should be just fine. Justin, where do you think you might go at second base?
I'm going to pay up a little bit, I think, today and go with either like a Daniel Murphy, who's great against left-handers, and getting Justin Nicolino. Again, with the Indians love Kipnis is another guy I wouldn't mind playing around with, and Ian Kinsler, who's been just like kind of old Ian Kinsler, or young Ian Kinsler for that matter this year. Getting a nice matchup as well. I really like him today.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. He's been on fire for sure. He gets Matt Andriese, who had a 2-hit shutout last time he came out. I was going to ask about that. The Tigers lineup, obviously, pretty talented. Brad, are you scared of Matt Andriese at all after that last outing? No.
I wouldn't say I'm scared. I'll call him better than Tyler Duffy, but he's still more of a core performer type guy, so with maybe like a 4.2 ERA. So you can go ahead and target him on any particular day and have an opportunity to get a big night, especially out of a lineup like the Tigers.
Yeah, that was a nice outing last time, but we try to not have short memories. I looked at it and I was like, oh, Andriese, and I'm like, wait, it's Matt Andriese. It should be fine. Yeah. This is a little off topic, but I have not talked about our chat yet, and it's active. Our friend Yancey Eaton in there, not asking a baseball question, but wants to know, Brad, what did you have for breakfast? Just to utilize our chat here, he asked what we had for breakfast. I haven't had breakfast.
Is it on my face?
No, it's not. But,
I had some maple brown sugar oatmeal. That's what I've been eating lately.
No breakfast for me. Justin, have you eaten?
I am eating my breakfast right now. It is a Rockstar. That and pretty much chain smoking cigarettes are kind of the way I wake up.
Yeah. Sorry. That's not a baseball question, but we do have a live chat going. So if you're listening, watching live, you can type in there. And if you have more baseball questions, we'll try and work those in. But thanks for participating in there. So it's second base. Back to second base. I have Jonathan Scope getting Hector Santiago. I used to really like Hector Santiago, but he's looking not great. But Jonathan Scope can run into one. He hits right as well. He'll do fine against a lefty in Santiago, too, as well, I think. I'm not really worried about that. I just kind of trust Jonathan Scope, who will quite often put up over force for you, but also is very capable of connecting. He's that kind of hitter. And there aren't a ton of them at second base. I have Robinson Cano at Dan Straley, but like Brad said, you got to keep an eye on the weather. If that game's a go, that's a good matchup. Go nuts, but I wouldn't set it and forget it. You got to keep it. Yeah, you can't trust it to go. You got to make sure maybe a game time decision, but that's a good one. I have Kipnis against Ed Buchholz is fine. Justin, sounds like you're banking on Clay Buchholz to implode, and I don't think that's not safe. I think that he's capable of that. And then my last second baseman, I have Derek Dietrich getting Tanner Roark. I'm still on the Derek Dietrich train. Once D. Gordon, went out, a lot of us were like, yeah, Derek Dietrich. he hasn't made us look bad. He's been fine. So if he's at second base or wherever, I think that's a fine matchup against Tanner Roark, who I can't get his 15 strikeout game against the Twins out of my head at all, but I still don't trust him that much. I think that a lefty like Dietrich can do just fine against him. Brad, who else did you have at second base?
The other guy that I'm looking at that wasn't named, Rougned Odor tonight against McCullers. McCullers obviously has a lot of stuff. He's a good pitcher. I'm not sure that I trust he's all the way back yet, and that's why I would consider any Texas players, Odor in particular, batting leadoff.
Yeah, we said before that McCullers coming back is exciting. I think he has plenty of fantasy value. He's interesting, but he had a tough matchup in his return. It was Boston, and they beat him up. You know, and then you're like, what do I take away from this? Is it that he's not ready? Is it that Boston's good, which they are? Like,
could be a mix of both. And the Rangers also have a pretty tough offense. Not as good as the Red Sox, but still up there.
Yeah. Justin, do you have any second baseman that we didn't mention?
If you're looking for kind of an extreme punt play on DraftKings, $2,000 Chris Coghlan up against CC Sabathia, another guy I wouldn't mind stacking against today. But he's one of those guys that, like, if I'm really running low on money, that I always see him down at the bottom. And I like Chris Coghlan. He's not great, but he can hit one out. He has on a number of occasions this year. But Odor, I really like the call, especially in your MMA formats.
yes. I'm not tired of Rougned Odor jokes yet. I'm fine with it. I'll allow it. Wave it on in. I like Coghlan, especially at that price and the matchup, just because he's Sabathia. It's not great, and I think we're gonna be picking a fair amount of A's actually as we roll into this, which might be our segue to third base. Go ahead, Brad. What are you thinking at third base here? Does it start with Danny Valencia?
Well, we've certainly queued it up, so let's talk about Valencia.
It has to, right?
Hitting very well since coming back from disabled list. It's kind of a weird thing. Usually guys are a little slower after coming back, but he's on fire. Homers all over the place. Mashes left-handed pitching. Obviously, Sabathia is extremely targetable tonight. The only downside is the Yankees bullpen. Sabathia keeps them in the game, and it makes sense for the Yankees to be going to Betances, Miller, and Chapman. Then you got 3 blank innings in a game. Hopefully the A's just put it away early, and the Yankees go to some of their weaker options, and those guys can all continue hitting.
I agree that the Yankees bullpen can be scary for sure. I had Steve Adams of MLB Trade Rumors on Thursday, and he brought up a good point that according to him, and I haven't fact checked, but I believe him, that the Yankees are currently carrying 3 lefties in their bullpen, and it includes those 2 really good ones. But that could mean good things for these, Ace guys we like who hit lefties. At least that's a little bit of a better matchup for them. You still don't want to deal with Chapman and those guys, but it could be a little bit of a silver lining. I don't know. I'm trying to take the edge off that bullpen a little bit, but I agree. The Valencia's been hot, and he likes to hit lefties, and Sabathia you can take advantage of. Who else are you thinking at third base, Brad?
Even cheaper in Valencia, Justin Turner, batting second for the Dodgers most late lately. He's up against Christian Friedrich, who is not good. Very, very much a contender for worst pitcher in the majors. So that could be a pretty lopsided game, and Turner will have opportunities to drive in runs, score runs, even go for extra bases on multiple occasions.
Yeah. I like that. He's been a little disappointing so far this year, but batting second for the Dodgers against Christian Friedrich is a good place to be.
And most of that disappointment has come against right-handed pitching. He's still hitting lefties just fine.
Yeah, that's true. I just got, so back to our chat, Steve pops in and says, don't misquote me, 4 lefties in the Yankees bullpen. And I welcome the correction. Thank you. I happy to be corrected there. So yeah, a little more silver lining for the A's picks there, or guys right-handers going up against the Yankees. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate the correction. Justin, what are you thinking at third base? Where do you think you might be going?
So many great options. I hate picking against my Giants, but anytime Chris Bryant can go up against Jake Peavy, that just seems like a matchup made in heaven. And I know that it's a pitcher's park, but Bryant's power plays anywhere, so I'm not worried necessarily that it's in San Francisco. Maikel Franco is a guy that is way too cheap in my opinion. Again, going against Matt Whistler, so at home. So I'm going to pick on that matchup. If you've already got a shortstop that you've circled, feverishly, then I definitely like Manny Machado at third. Playing against the lefty, he mashes everyone, but he especially mashes lefties as well. So he's another guy I'm looking at.
Yeah, third base has become such a star-studded position. We don't get Arenado today because we probably don't want him against Garrett Cole, but there's just so many other big names there lately. It feels like you get Bryant, you can take Machado. Like it's become an expensive position. It's nice. So I like those. The only name I have what we didn't mention is Luis Valbuena getting Colby Lewis, and in that Astros infield is kind of shuffled around a little bit. But when he gets in, there's some pop, and I don't think he, can't hit against Colby Lewis. I'd like to see more from him this year. You're just kind of looking for the cheap homer there, but that's kind of his game. I think he's capable of that. So, Brad, did you have any other third baseman we didn't mention?
There's a few more. I'll just drop names. Todd Frazier, Josh Donaldson, and Nick Castellanos. All good matchups today. All power threats.
Yeah, cool. All right, you want to take us away at shortstop? What are you thinking there?
Let's talk about Semien. We can have a little chat about him.
Sure.
Very much the lefty masher. Can't really do much against righties. He, at least through his career to this point, just doesn't hit righties very well. But lefties, he's a very nice matchup against them. Over 300 average, decent OBP, power, and as I mentioned earlier, he's a guy who tends to you'll get a homer or two, or you won't get anything. And lefties are kind of the exception where you might actually get some hits in between too. And so that's what I like to use them. You get a little bit more floor involved with that power upside.
Sure. Yeah. If I need to weigh in, Semien gets a thumbs up from me too. I don't feel strongly, but if I had to go pro, thumbs up or thumbs down, I'm a Semien guy. Justin, do you have strong opinions about Marcus Semien, and who else do you have at shortstop?
Yeah, I have extremely strong feelings towards Marcus Semien. Aside from the fact that he's in the Bay Area, even though he's on the A's, he just destroys left-handed pitching. So, and you get CC Sabathia, who I really like as a person, but and actually got to watch him pitch in high school out here because he pitched for Vallejo High School. Yeah, he's going to get mashed today by some of these bats in Oakland, and I think Semien kind of leads the core. He's going to be probably on every single one of my DraftKings lineup at 3,800.
Is he? Are you part of the campaign to move him out of the 9-hole? Is he still batting ninth? I know a lot of people are upset about that.
He's more 7-8 now.
Yeah, slowly moving up.
We were talking beforehand that you saw that Josh Reddick is out for a few weeks. He may move up even farther now, so that may be great news for him.
I saw some tweet, I don't want to misquote it, but that Semien set some record for the A's already for most homers from the 9-hole in a season, right, in 9 or 10, and it's that's a good thing / that's a bad thing. You want to not be there. It's the weird thing. He already has 10 homers, which is considerable for sure, but he also has his flaws.
It reminds me a ton of Jock Peterson just being stuck in the 8-hole last year.
Yeah,
you're just praying that come on, just move him up a little bit, just a little bit.
Sure.
To get some added value.
Yeah. So where else are you going at shortstop? I assume you're cool with Francisco Lindor getting Clay Buchholz, another part of that stack, right?
I'm not a big Lindor guy, so I don't usually go with him, but I'm not afraid to put any Indian into my lineup today. I'm gonna butcher his name. Alzmedes Diaz.
I believe it's a Ledmez, but yeah, it's not an easy one. It's not an easy one.
And I'm awful with names to begin with, so I really like him. He is good against left-handed pitchers. Gets Corbin today at home, and it's not like Corbin has been what a lot of people thought he would be this year. And I'm not necessarily the biggest of Corbin fans to begin with, so I'm actually going to be running out a number of good Cardinals today that hit well against left-handers.
Sure. Yeah. Brad, who else are you thinking at shortstop?
Just to stick on Diaz for a second, they also bumped him up to second in the lineup yesterday, which has the feel of a semi-permanent move. He definitely has the bat for it. I've been saying all along he should be batting first or second, and so it's good to see him actually jump up in the lineup, and that's going to really help his value. It's not going to be reflected in his prices today. Will be tomorrow probably, but for now you get a modest bonus for that too.
Cool. Yeah.
We touched on Machado briefly at third base. I also like him at shortstop. And on DraftKings, or not on DraftKings, on FanDuel, he's only shortstop now. I don't know when they made that switch or why they made it permanent, but now he's a shortstop only, and he's 3,700, which is terribly underpriced.
Yeah, you gotta go there. That's kind of like the Posey thing. You're like, you got it, right? Like,
yeah, it's not as extreme as Posey, because 2,800 is absurd for someone who's not cold and as good as Buster Posey. But still, it's a huge bargain. It should be another $800 on his price at least.
Feels like one of those picks where you're like, oh, I don't even get to pick a player. You just did it for me. That's who I have to use now. That's a good one for sure. I like all those guys at shortstop. I had two more that are a little bit, I don't know if sneakier is the right word, but I like Aledmys Diaz. I also got to mention Jed Jerko if he gets in the lineup. They use him consistently. He's a lefty matcher. That's the skill that he has, is that he can hit lefties. And he has pop. Those are his two skills, essentially. Hits lefties and has some power. Beyond that, has some troubles as a ball player. But that said, if you're playing DFS and you just need a little bit of power, and sneaky somewhere like a shortstop position, or second base, not sure where he's going to play. But keep an eye out for Jed Jerko. I think this is a fine matchup for him if you want cheap power. The other one I have is Corey Seager getting Christian Friedrich. That's lefty on lefty, but Corey Seager can hit lefties, and he did in the minor leagues. He's shown some weird reverse splits at times. He's very talented, and it's Christian Friedrich. So I think some people might not want the lefty on lefty, and I think they would be incorrect. I think that Corey Seager can handle lefties just fine. And I think he'll, it's Christian Friedrich, and he's talented. They're batting him in the heart of the order. I say thumbs up for Corey Seager at shortstop, for sure. Okay. On the outfield, Brad, what were you thinking in the outfield? Plenty of options as usual, but
Yes.
What's jumping off the page to you?
Busy outfield day. I mentioned I love Mets today, and that's an outfield you can use in total. Curtis Granderson, Yoenis Cespedes, and Michael Conforto. All good picks today. Conforto and Granderson a little cold right now. If you're an advocate of the hot hand, you might prefer to go elsewhere. Personally, I'm not concerned. I think they're going to do plenty fine against Willie Peralta at a pretty weak bullpen.
Yeah.
Cespedes looks like a great play today, too, if you can afford him.
Yeah.
Also liking Dodgers today. Yasiel Puig's super cheap on FanDuel, and there's a reason he's not hitting well. But for 2,300 and that matchup against Friedrich, you got to really think about using him, even though he's not hitting well. And then Tracy Thompson's the guy who mainstream baseball fans might know less of, but I actually expect him to be pretty popular tonight up against a lefty in San Diego.
Yeah. No, he's trying to work his way into that starting role there, and very well might do it. Our friend Yancey in the chat wants to know if you're any interest in Matt McBride for the A's filling in for Reddick. He's only $2,000, and I have to admit I don't know anything about Matt McBride. Are you interested, or do you know anything about Matt McBride, Brad?
I am looking at his page now. I looked a couple of days ago, and I came away unimpressed. So I'll give it another look.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember who he is now. He has a little bit of pop, and I think at that minimum price, yes, it makes sense. In the same way that Alex Avila makes sense. You're taking a guy who hopefully won't be popular. That's the idea, is you're getting pure production that no one else is, basically. And there's still some potential for some kind of power. It's not one of these catchers who, just a wet bat and can't hit anything. So there's upside to using him today, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Yancey almost stumped us on Matt McBride. I was like, I'd heard that name, but I didn't have any analysis there. I mean, at $2,000 in a good matchup like that, most people are at least interesting. If he has some pop, even better. Justin, where are you thinking in the outfield? Anywhere that jumps off the page to you?
The first guy who jumps off the page to me is Stephen Piscotty.
Okay.
Great against left-handed pitching. I believe he's like top 5 or 6 in WOBA against left-handed pitching. So getting Pat Corbin at home, and I just feel like he's a guy who people kind of overlook in the outfield because there's so many other great options typically. Two guys that I believe will be very under-owned today. One, or actually both, kind of come with an injury caveat, so just make sure they're in the lineup. And that's Ryan Braun and Domingo Santana are both top 15 in WOBA against left-handed pitching. They're going up against Steven Matz, who's a fantastic pitcher, but I am extremely concerned with Matz's injuries this year and his ability to go long distances in games because of that. I think the Mets will try to protect him, and he could get pulled pretty early if he is effective. So I really like Braun and Domingo Santana. And then, as much as I've been like the biggest Bryce Harper naysayer and been eating a ton of crow for that, I mean, the matchup today is amazing, though he could end up just getting 7 walks.
Yeah, we talked before about him getting walks so much, if that actually like affects his DFS ceiling a little bit, and it's lefty on lefty with Nicolino, but I don't think anybody's worried about that. I think that he will do just fine there. Not worried. I like all those guys. I wrote down Jason Worth also gets Nicolino, and Jason Worth can still mash on lefties really hard. That's a skill he still has. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with people against Nicolino. Ben Revere, who's had a real tough, return so far this year. But if you think that, the Nationals are going to score a bunch of runs against the Marlins, and they very well might, like he could easily be a part of that. We talked about those other A's. You got to talk about Chris with a K Davis, right? Absolutely on fire. Likes to hit lefties, gets Sabathia. I think if you like Semien and you like Valencia, if you like the 4 lefties in the Yankees bullpen, go with Chris Davis. That's fine. Same with Billy Burns. My favorite pick for the day, I'd put a circle around it, or as Matt would say, stars and hearts. I have Mark Trumbo getting Hector Santiago. When Mark Trumbo gets a lefty who's not overwhelming, I say go nuts. He's, when he's on a hot streak, when things are going good there, I'm all about that. So that would be in one of my lineups for sure. And Dexter Fowler, who is impossible to get out, apparently. He gets Jake Peavy. It's San Francisco, but I'm not worried about Cubs going there, so I'm fine with that. Brad, where else were you thinking in the outfield?
I like a couple Phillies today. So Odubel Herrera is the one that's obvious, and he's really good, making a very strong all-star case. Some power, some speed, really high OBP. That's what's, I think, caught everyone off guard with him. Just a huge plate discipline breakout. The other one I'm looking at is Tyler Goodell, who, if you look at the season numbers, they're not very good. They started playing him every day on May 4th, and he's hitting something like, here, I have it written down here. He's hitting 325, 357, 500 since he started playing every day. And he has, over that period, 2 walks and 1 strikeout. So that's 42 plate appearances. He's putting everything in play.
Yeah.
Makes him a nice high variance pick. Those all-in-play guys. The issue is over time, someone's going to figure out a scouting report that says don't throw him strikes, and then the numbers are going to go away. But for now, as long as guys like Matt Whistler are throwing strikes to him, he can get hits, he can pile them up, and be pretty productive against a pretty bad team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a good deep pick for sure. I feel like a lot of people.
Top selling point, I forgot, $2,000 on FanDuel.
Yes, also that, which makes anybody interesting. I think a lot of people just the Phillies aren't that popular, and it's easy to go, Phillies,
right.
And it's
they're
like
terrible lineup. The Braves are worse.
Yeah, that's true. Justin, do you have any other outfielders we didn't mention that you don't want to leave behind?
Sure. The number 3, or the third-ranked third-ranked player with the highest WOBA against right-handed pitching is Marlon Byrd. Getting Clay Buchholz today again. So again, picking on the Indians. Michael Saunders I like against Tyler Duffy as well. And there was one more guy that I was trying to find. Kiki Hernandez, always against the lefty, is an interesting kind of guy to throw in there.
That's a good one. I don't know how I dropped the ball on Hernandez because I love him anytime he gets a lefty. That, yes, I didn't have that written down and I love it. Sometimes he plays infield, a lot of times he plays outfield, but absolutely mashes lefties. I'm all in there. That's a good one. Only other ones I have Christian Yelich getting kind of Roark because why not? He's an on-base machine. If you want any of the Pittsburgh outfielders against Eddie Butler, those are all fine too. They're doing well. Yeah, and Colby Rasmus getting Colby Lewis, Colby on Colby, because Colby Rasmus keeps hitting homers.
The Colby violence.
Basically, yeah. I mean, Colby Rasmus has just turned into one of these like 20, 30 homer guys that'll do just fine. So yeah. All right, Brad. Let's get started with pitchers. Kind of a weird pitching day. Definitely some options though. Who looks interesting to you on Friday?
So, the way this day is set up, and when you look at days like this on paper, you come away saying, I have to use an ace.
Okay.
Tends to be that there's somebody who's not an ace who's going to have a good day and kind of make you look dumb. But just based on the guys who are out there, there's a lot of kind of mid-tier type pitchers and a lot of bottom-tier pitchers too. So you're left looking at a few top choices. Jake Arrieta is very expensive. Garrett Cole, I mentioned, pretty cheap on DraftKings, but he's also expensive on FanDuel.
Do you trust him against the Rockies?
Yeah, I don't have a problem targeting the Rockies at PNC Park.
Yeah.
They're a very power-centric lineup, and it's, I think, the second worst park for power. So they can still hit home runs. It's not like nobody hits home runs in Pittsburgh, but that's how they generate their offense, and Cole has a definite advantage.
Mm-hmm.
The other guys I like, I think Jose Quintana has a very good chance for a win against Dylan G.
Mm-hmm.
He isn't really affected by US Cellular Park either, so you don't have to worry too much about home runs. Obviously, it's always a risk, but it's not really elevated just because he's pitching at home. And then
we've also in recent weeks talked about how the Royals just aren't that scary anymore, right?
Right. They're not scary. They're especially not scary against left-handed pitching, and they're a team you can go after. And Quintana is definitely a guy who's running hot and looking very sharp this year.
Yeah. Justin, how about you? Who do you think you might go with on the pitching side? Anybody, looking real sharp to you?
Well, I really like the Quintana call because that's a guy who's probably going to be in the majority of my DraftKings lineups. Aaron Sanchez versus Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay strikes out at like over 25% of the time against right-handed pitching, and it's always fun to troll Yancey Eaton.
Yeah, Anibal Sanchez he's had kind of he's been bad, but the Rays don't hit righties, so I think even there
Hold up, I think we need to do some clarification. It's a Anibal Sanchez and Aaron Sanchez day.
Yeah.
Aaron's facing the Twins. Anibal's facing the Rays.
I'm sorry. Yes, it's Anibal Sanchez against Tampa Bay, but I also do like Aaron Sanchez against the Twins.
Both are interesting. It's funny when I write it down, I've seen it abbreviated as A.A. Sanchez for Aaron. Mm-hmm. You can't just put A. Sanchez. Yeah. Anibal, I'm down on Anibal, but the Rays are looking like a offense that you could exploit, against righties. So if you want to go cheap there, I don't think that's, a lot of people be like, oh, Anibal Sanchez. I don't think that's nuts at all. And Aaron Sanchez getting the Twins, also a lineup that you can take advantage of. Probably got to pay a little bit more for that, But yeah, no, I agree. That would be just fine. Brad, are you considering? I already asked you about him earlier, but in this matchup, would you go near Matt Andriese getting the Tigers, coming off a 2-hit shutout?
I'd think about it. Yeah, it's something that's going to be pretty unpopular. And the thing about pitching as a discipline is it's very feel-based, and so you can have these streaks where kind of mediocre guys have a really good feel of a specific thing. And I don't have any information that says that's what's happening with Andriese, but it's possible. And when there's possibility and there's these opportunities, Tigers do strike out, and the the Rays just aren't going to be popular tonight in general.
Yeah.
So it's a nice fade opportunity. Not
Yeah.
one that I'll be using personally, but I won't say don't do it.
Are you all right? One of the most interesting matchups that I think today. There's a lot of good pitchers going. What do you think of Matt Wisler against Aaron Nola? Again, two of the worst offenses in baseball.
This is going to be a fun one.
Yeah.
I would say that I'm going to watch it just because it's probably going to be like a 2-1 ball game.
Sure.
MLB TV, for some reason, thinks that I live in the Philly market, so I have those games blacked out. I actually live in the Baltimore and Nationals market, and I don't want to fix that.
Yeah.
I'd rather watch the Orioles and Nationals on most days, so
Yeah.
can't watch Phillies games. And I know I could use a proxy, but I got hacked the last time I did that, so I'm not doing that.
Scared away from that. So Matt Wisler's been bad before. He's a guy I used to pick on. He's a guy who had splits, but always had some talent and said, oh, if he puts it together. Looks like he might be putting it together. And going against the Phillies is a good thing. Do you believe in Matt Wisler?
No.
And no, you're not in.
I know our week 1 guest Paul Sporer is a big fan of Whistler.
Yeah.
I don't see it. The advanced stats, like his xFIP, something like 4.88. Sierra's up there too. He's got a, working from memory, I think it's a 2 point, or no, he's got a .224 BABIP. That's what.
Okay.
A 224 BABIP. I was confusing myself by saying point. So it's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on with Whistler right now. He's doesn't have strikeout stuff. He has decent command. There's not a lot there to like. He's another back of the rotation guy. I'd slot him in behind Tyler Duffy in terms of talent.
All right. So not buying on Wisler. I assume you're all in for
use
Aaron
him
Nola.
tonight.
Yeah. Against the Phillies.
are bad.
Are you all in on Aaron Nola getting the Braves though? That's a good pitcher and a good matchup.
That's a fantastic matchup. My only concern is that they're pretty careful with him, pitch count wise. I noticed like he'll have games where he's like 85 pitches through 7 innings. They'll pull him.
Yeah.
Like, they have no problem taking him out after 7 innings. He's probably not going to give you more than that, and so given his price tags. He's pretty expensive on both sites. I'd rather go for a guy who has a chance at a complete game.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good call. I wrote Sonny Gray getting the Yankees because the Yankees are also becoming a team that you can not necessarily stream against, but definitely confidently pitch against. They're not good right now. I could see them getting better, but they're not good right now. So I trust Sonny Gray against the Yankees without flinching. I think that'd be fine. I wrote Carlos Martinez getting the D-backs. He's at home. I think Carlos Martinez is plenty talented. The D-backs are not a great matchup, but not one I'm necessarily scared away of, at least, being away from Arizona. And then, Justin, I have Corey Kluber going to Boston. It's not a great matchup for him. Kluber's good, though, and again, banking on Buchholz maybe falling apart. Would you consider finishing your Indian stack with Corey Kluber? Are you in on Corey Kluber?
No. There's no way. I mean, and I love Corey Kluber, but I mean, against Boston, he just hasn't looked the same. Saris on the Sleeper and Bust podcast talks a lot about how he just has a bad fastball, and so if the rest of the stuff isn't working well, he can get lit up, and Boston is a team that can take advantage of that.
Yeah, that could be a high-scoring game then. I like Corey Kluber a lot too, but I'm scared to send just about anybody to Boston right now.
Reminded me to pull him from my Ottoneu lineup.
It's not a good time for that. It's weird to think about benching him, but I get it for sure. Justin, is there any other pitchers that you like for Friday?
I'm not a huge fan of this pitching slate. So, like, for me, it was Aaron Sanchez, Minnesota, Anibal in Tampa Bay. I will say I don't like the Sonny Gray call. Because to me, he's a guy that I know he looked a little bit better in his last start, but he does not look healthy. Something looks wrong, and it's something I've been kind of saying over the course of the last week on a number of different podcasts that I've guested on or on my own site, is that he's not placing his breaking stuff well. It does not look the same. The metrics on his fastball are awful compared to last year, even though he's The speed of it, the velocity is only down half a degree from last year around this time. So he's just a guy that I need to see 2 or 3 nice starts from him before I'm willing to buy in. I know he talked to the media and said he fixed the mechanical problems that are going on with him, but
Right.
it really got to show me first. I mean, he'll probably be extremely underowned in spite of the fact that he's cheap because of his struggles this year. But I'm just not willing to do it until I've seen it.
Sure, that's very fair. I don't doubt that you've followed it closer than I have, and that's worth noting. Absolutely. I agree. I still feel like a matchup against the Yankees is okay in general, but if those concerns are there for Sonny Gray, then especially might be a stay away. Brad, were there any pitchers we didn't mention that you feel like you need to consider as well?
I think that covers it. I do like the talk about Sonny Gray. He's definitely interesting today because of those Yankees. He's 6,800 on DraftKings, which is where I'd be considering him. 8,600 on FanDuel, just not worth it. You could pay 400 more, get Aaron Nola, which is well worth the cost. Another 400 gets you to Jose Quintana, who's a complete game potential tonight. So not on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, he's super cheap. If you want to try to believe in his words to the media and hope that his mechanics are fixed. The one thing I picked up from his comments was he was talking about fastball location, and as Justin pointed out, it's all about the curveball right now. His breaking ball is the problem. He's got to be able to spot that in the zone better. He's got to be able to get more swings on it. And until that happens, it doesn't matter if he's hitting spots with his fastball. It's just going to be too hittable.
Yeah. Something's going on, for sure. Excuse me. Yeah, that's interesting. So for Friday, Matt and I are doing the Field of Streams contest every day, and I have his pick here. Justin, if you're not familiar, or if you're listening and you're not familiar, my co-host during the week, Matt and I pick a pitcher that is less than 50% owned in Yahoo leagues every day of the season, and we keep track, and so it's kind of a streaming contest to see who can compile the best stats. And because it's less than 50% owned, the selection can be tricky, but for Friday it looks like Whistler or Andrisi. You can take Straley, Duffy, Colby Lewis. Matt's taking Hector Santiago, getting Baltimore, which, there's a lot of strikeouts there, and if you can keep the ball in the park, that's not bad. I'm going with Whistler. I think I'm not quite on the Paul Sporer end of the spectrum and believing him, but I don't know if I'm as thin on him as Brad is. I'm probably more on the Brad side, but so far so good, and it's the Phillies, so I'm taking that matchup, even if he might not get much help against Nola. So I'm going to register those 2 picks, write them down. So that's it for Friday. Before we get out of here, let's take a look at Saturday and Sunday, and just a quick preview of the weekend to see what looks good that's coming up, what you might be watching. If not even playing DFS, what you're watching. On Saturday, again, for these picks, there's streaming options, but Matt and I both like Kevin Gausman getting the Angels. He's only 47% owned in Yahoo leagues, and that's too low. I think he's been good, and the Angels they have their issues, as we talk about plenty. So I like that as a matchup, and that should be interesting to watch on Saturday. He gets Matt Shoemaker, also is a good matchup for him, at least on the other side of the hill. Brad, what are you looking at on Saturday, either DFS-wise or just, as a baseball fan? Not the Phillies to watch, apparently, but yeah. Who else might you be watching?
I would actually be interested in the Phillies game, just because I want to get more looks at Adam Morgan, get a better sense of who he is as a pitcher, if he's someone who can stick or is more of a swing man. It's Morgan versus Williams Perez in the battle of bad pitchers versus bad lineups. So that could be an interesting game. Also intrigued by this Pat Dean fellow out of Minnesota. I made some jokes about him in the Daily Grind column today. Left-handed pitcher, throws 89, could really get torched by the Blue Jays.
Yeah, when you said you're intrigued by him, I was like, in what way?
Intrigued mostly by his potential to blow up.
Yeah, that could be an ugly day for the Twins, for sure. And that's just a DFS exclamation point, right? You're like, all right, that's okay. Yeah. Justin, how about you on Saturday? Anything you're looking forward to? Matt Cain versus John Lester?
Yeah, always looking forward to Matt Cain pitching again. So yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean DFS wise, I'm really looking at the kind of Cleveland Boston matchup in
Hmm.
terms of two starters who probably can't go a total of 6 innings between the both of them. So uh, I'm a huge Bauer fan and have been for a long time, but I just neither of them probably going to make it past the fourth inning
Yeah.
in that game. So, but I mean, regular kind of baseball-wise, the Joe Ross Jose Fernandez matchup in Miami is just it is porn for pitching. So I'm going to be really interested in watching that one.
Yeah, that's interesting for sure. I like Joe Ross. Joe Ross has crazy splits, but he's making it work for sure.
I just traded him. In a season-long league, I just traded Nomar Mazara for Joe Ross because my team, all my pitching staffs have just been ravaged, absolutely
Yeah.
ravaged.
Well, he can help. I like that. That's a fun trade. And then for Sunday, where are you looking? Looking a few days ahead, but how do you think you might end your weekend baseball wise? Anything sticking out to you?
The Greinke Jaime Garcia matchup on Sunday. I really want to see if Greinke's starting to turn a corner. He is much better here. He has been better on the road
Mhm.
than at home. So and then Jaime Garcia is always an interesting guy to watch as long as he's healthy.
Yeah, we got a question in our chat actually about Greinke, and I wasn't going to bring it up because it wasn't on Friday, but asking, is he having home road problems? Brad, are you worried about Greinke? What are you doing here with your Zach Greinke owner? Not much you can do, right?
No, there's not much you can do. I think you just keep using them. Same as if you own David Price or Chris Archer. Some of
Hmm.
these struggling aces like Matt Harvey, there's serious cause for concern.
Yeah.
I think about sitting them in a lot of matchups. Some of these other ones, you use them. I can't find a reason why they're not doing well, so I'm just gonna keep riding them until something good happens.
And Greinke's a guy that has at times lagged behind his peripherals. Had good peripherals and the results haven't shown up, but sometimes they do in big ways, like last year. So no, you just kind of got to go. And as for Sunday, I'm going to St. Louis. I'm not that scared of the Cardinals lineup. It's not bad, but it's not a stay away for me. There's talented hitters in it, but I think you can trust your pitchers there. If you trust the pitcher in general, I'm trusting them in St. Louis. Yeah. How about you on Sunday? Who's looking good to you, or at least what do you want to watch?
Assuming the potential rainout tonight doesn't change the pitchers involved,
Hmm.
Wade Miley versus Alfredo Simon has the potential for 20 runs.
You're not a Wade Miley guy?
I like Wade Miley just fine. I just don't like him at Great American Ballpark. I
Yeah,
think that's a nightmare waiting to happen.
yeah. Yeah, I can see that. On Sunday, I was thinking about making it my field of streams pick because I believe in him, but he's been homer prone, and there are some good actual right-handed bats in that Reds lineup, like Eugenio Suarez and Brandon Phillips and Zach Cozart. Like that infield can actually hit lefties. So I do like Wade Miley. I agree that I don't know that I like that matchup, especially a guy that can give up homers. So
My advice to you would be to go to one of these pitchers in Pittsburgh, either Bettis or Nicasio.
yeah,
Just a
well
good part for pitching.
Yeah, Matt's picking Jared Eichhoff on Sunday. Getting Atlanta. We picked him last time. That seemed like a slam dunk, but he has his weakness against lefties, and actually got him hit around a little bit against Atlanta last time, which is a weird phrase that we don't get to use that often this year. But he did get hit by lefties. He now gets a rematch against them. He didn't get beat up that bad, and they're still not very good. So I don't think that's crazy to go with him again there. I think I might take Adam Conley, who's still somehow eligible. He gets the Nationals. Unfortunately, he gets Max Scherzer, but
Right.
he gets the Nationals. He's still eligible, but he's shown that he's fairly competent, and I'm not that worried about the Nationals. They're decent, and they have some good left-handed bats, but the right-handed guys are Wilson Ramos and Jason Worth and those guys. So I'm going with Conley there. I thought about Miley. You scared me off a little bit. It's a bad part. But Nicasio wouldn't be bad either. Just, you have anything else that looks good on the weekends for you? Anything else on Sunday?
No, I usually try to kind of get some sleep because I work weird hours. So I stay up for at least one game, and then I try to spend the rest of the day in bed.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, it's just get to take the weekend off from baseball a little bit. Okay, well that should do it for us for obviously for DFS for Friday, and then for what's going on for the weekend. Justin, thanks for joining us. Where can people catch you and follow you? You said you're podcasting all over the place and running your own stuff. Can follow you on Twitter, but what else you got going on?
Yeah, you can always follow me on Twitter, Justin Mason FWFB. I am the co-owner and kind of lead fantasy analyst over at friendswithfantasybenefits.com. We're pretty much doing daily podcasts for baseball right now, 5 days a week. 2 DFS ones on Tuesday and Friday, a prospect podcast on Monday, and then kind of regular baseball shows on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Warning: it is very NSFW. If you don't know what that means, it's not safe for work. We swear a lot. We don't bleep anything. It is guys talking like guys. So if you have sensitive ears, I would recommend not coming over. But if you're into that kind of thing, I'm just very glad that I didn't drop an F-bomb or anything like that on this one.
Sure. Sure. Well, that sounds fun. Yeah, over at Friends with Fantasy Benefits. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Go check out Justin's show, Justin's site, and doing plenty of content over there. Brad, got a question in the chat from Sam. Wants to know, are you going to Fangraphs Sabermetric Day?
Yes, I am. Very excited. We're just starting to talk about it on our internal Slack page.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that was announced to us as a group back in, I want to say January, maybe in December. And just hadn't heard anything about it since then until a few days back. So I'm very excited, getting ready. Got to figure out how I'm getting up to New York from North Carolina, but I'll solve that problem.
So, Brad will be there. Do you know when that is off the top of your head?
It's the June 17th to 19th. I forget which day is the actual Sabermetrics Day for the public, but that's when we'll be up in New York.
Yeah, and that'll be, and Brad will be there. Sam in the chat says he'll see you there. Sam also says Justin really liked the Matt Bush article. So, yeah, again, go check that out.
Thank you very much.
Justin wrote. I read it too. I really liked it also. So, I think that'll about do it for us. Brad, you got anything going on other than just daily grind?
Yeah, grinding away.
Same as always. Well, Brad is on Twitter at baseball18. Make sure to give him a follow. A lot of DFS stuff going on. I'm on Twitter at HigginsFOS. Thanks to everybody that joined us in the chat today and watched. Somebody says congrats on the win. Did you win the Invitational, Brad? Is that what?
Yeah, I finally won one of those things. Actually, I had a really good lineup yesterday. Came this close to making a ton of money with it. As it was, still made like $100, which was roughly what I was down to begin with, so back to even.
Won your Invitational, won your own contest.
Bring some things together. The way my season's been going is I get a decent win and then just cold for 15 days. I get a decent win and cold, and I only play GPP, so it's not really like unexpected behavior, but I would just like to have 2 or 3 wins in a row at one point.
Yeah, well, Brad's running those contests. Definitely follow him on Twitter to play in those with him. A lot of Rotographs people in the chat are playing that. That's pretty fun. So join up there. Thanks to Brad, and thanks again to Justin for joining us. Glad having you on. That'll do it for us for Friday. I'll be back on Monday with Matt. I think Matt will be back in the country. I got to check, make sure he's okay. Didn't eat too much Tim Hortons or get lost up there. But he'll be back. We'll be back on Monday. Thanks to Brad and to Justin. Good luck in your stacks this weekend, and we'll talk to you then.